evening, whenever you may be tuning in. And on the 33rd Sunday of the year, which is the next to last year of the church calendar, we don't go by January 1st. The church calendar has its own calendar. So we have next week is the Christ the King, and then we begin Advent, getting ready for Christmas. But let me read the gospel to you coming up. Jesus told his disciples this parable. A man going on a journey called in his servants and trusted his possessions to them. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to a third 1, to each according to his ability. Then he went away. Immediately the one who received 5 talents went and traded with them and made another 5. Likewise, the one who received 2 made another 2. But the man who received them went off and dug a hole in the ground and buried his master's money. After a long time, the master of those servants came back and settled accounts with them. The one who had received 5 talents made 5 more. His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come and share your master's joy." Then the one who had received 2 talents also came forward and said, "Master, you gave me 2 talents. See, I have made 2 more." His master said to him, "Well done, my good and faithful servant. Since you were faithful in small matters, I will give you great responsibilities. Come, share your master's joy." Then the one who received 1 talent came forward and said, "Master, I knew you were a demanding person, harvesting where you did not plant, gathering where you did not scatter. So out of fear, I went off and buried your talent in the ground. Here it is back." His master said to him in reply, "You wicked, lazy servant. So you knew that I harvest where I did not plant it, gather where I did not scatter. Should you not have put my money in the bank so that I could have got it back with interest on my return? Now then, take the talent from him and give it to the one with 10. For to everyone who has more will be given, and he will grow rich. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. Throw this useless servant into the darkness outside, where there'll be wailing and grinding of teeth." Now we say talent, and probably immediately we begin thinking of some special ability, music, talent, artistic. But here it's really talking about a money. The talent was not a coin, it was a weight. And therefore its value obviously depended on whether the coinage involved copper, gold, or silver, right? The common metal involved was silver. And the value of a talent was about $295. It's on that basis that we have made the translations of the various sums. Now here, this is the unusual one that wouldn't come to mind of the meaning of this parable. There can be no doubt that originally this parable, the whole attention was riveted on the useless servant. I'm sure he's the one that really grabs our attention, the useless one who got 1, the one who buried it. The Lord was in a good mood with the first 2, right? The 5 and the 2, and now all of a sudden, we have this guy who hid his money, and Jesus, treated him kind of harshly. Now, and by the way, they stand for the scribes and the Pharisees, for their attitude to the law and the truth of God. The useless servant buried his talent in the ground in order that it might hand back to his master exactly as it was. The whole aim of the scribes and Pharisees was to keep the law exactly as it was. In their own phrase, they sought to build a fence around the law. Any change, any development, any alteration, anything new was to them anathema. And the method involved the paralyzing the religious truth. Okay. So the man who like the talent, he desired to keep things just as they were. And for that reason, they are condemned. In this parable, Jesus tells us there can be no religion without a venture, and that God can find no use for the shut mind, closed mind. But there's more of the parable to that as well. You have any talents? Never ask you, maybe your humility, you may think, perhaps you can think of some cook well, some arts and crafts, right? We all receive different talents. The danger, of course, is comparing ourselves to others, so who we may consider more intelligent, more athletic, more musical. And not only do we perhaps admire their talents, but we also put ourselves down probably. We may feel cheated. We're not any good. So the talents we have, because we're in this doldrum, this puts us in a bad mood. We don't even use the ones that we have. Hmm. Now, we're blessed to be in this beautiful area here, Marion County, and I'll speak about Father Patrick Sheedy, who was the pastor of Blessed Trinity. He wrote a little book, short memoirs of his life. I think it's called God is Able. I read it. It's fantastic book. And it's amazing what the man has accomplished. It's incredible. And when I finished the book, I had two feelings. One was admiration and wow. And then, boy, I was a little bit depressed. I know the word depressed is a little strong, but man, I thought, look at all what he did. What have I done? Did I waste my life? And so I had to deal with that. But understand this, God gives different talents, different abilities to different people, right? Notice with the one who received the 5 and the one who received 2, God did not, compare the two, all right? He didn't compare, well, you only have 2, you only have 4, this guy doubled his and you doubled yours, but one has more. He rejoiced just the same way. He rejoiced with the one who had with the 2 and doubled it as with the one who had 5 and doubled it. So God does not expect us to be like someone else. He just wants us to be who we are. And some, even in churches, some churches have more, bigger attendance and one may be smaller. But that's okay because maybe God wants you, as a person to influence these individuals who have this different kind of personality, different interests, because they're all important to God. So it's not the size. Notice the more you do, the more you can do. The less you do, the less you can do. That's how it works, right? We say use it or lose it. So the more you can do, the more you can do. The more risk you take, usually, not always, but then you grow, you develop. You stand still, you're not going to get anything. Anything great that has been done, any sort of invention, any sort of movement is always involved risk. And there's always failure too, by the way. They all fail, all right? Failure just tells them, well, this is not going to work, so they know now what not to do. Sometimes we're afraid of failure. And that hinders us as well. You got to be bold, you got to be daring, of course, be reasonable, be prudent, because sometimes you got to take risk. I know this guy's going to top the teenager. That's a risk. That's daring. But you got to do it. You never know. Someone has a need, you got to fill it. And the man who's being punished, why? Because he didn't try. He did not try. So we have people in our church, we have a lot of ministries, and part of the problem is they're not trying. They're content to keep things just the way they are. I do come to church, hopefully every week, maybe not even that much. I do this, I give this much, and there's no change, no alteration. You're not growing. And God said, hey, you got to give, you got to stretch, you got to, take a risk, get out there. And so you want to receive more, do more. And I say back to Father Sheedy or Father Doherty, the more he does, the more he can do. Things work out differently. You say, why? Why does this work out? Why does he seem to get the breaks? Or why does this donor, all of a sudden recognize, he gets these gifts and I don't? Because he has done things. God will provide when you step out. So I'm asking you now, whatever your talent or gift may be, don't compare it to someone else. God has given you certain talents. How are you using it? It's not for you to sit on it, to ignore, to keep buried. You got to stretch yourself. You got to give to others. You got to be a blessing to others. If you're not, well, you heard how Jesus treated that one who buried his talent. And you don't want to hear those words for yourself. God bless you.